Greetings, everyone. Well, Double Feature Week continues with another double feature. Yeah, so let's head on over to the secret chest and see what we've got for today. Okay, let's see what we've got here. Aha! Truly a classic. We have Carrie, and then we have the 2013 remake. Oh, bloody, not bloody. Bloody, not bloody. Gotta put the ribbon in there. Alright, there we go. Okay. Now playing. And now also playing. Yes, so today we've got a double whammy of, kind of continuing our prom night theme, actually. Some more prom action, some more revenge, and pranks gone horribly wrong. Well, let's see how the 1976 version compares to the 2013 version. Today on the Multimedia Chronicles. Welcome back. I should mention this is the MGM Blu-ray release of the original that was put out a couple years ago. You may recall, I think it was in 2014, the big Halloween celebration there, where I picked up a bunch of those budget horror releases that had the art cards with them. Yeah, and this was one of them. Now, I was going to mention there's actually a Scream Factory release coming out. Actually, it was just released a few days ago. Big collector's edition. They had a limited edition version that had an extra slipcover and a couple of posters with it. I totally missed out on that. And I did look for it. I was shopping earlier today, and I did look around for it, but I didn't see it in the wild here. I don't even know if it's going to be available in Canada. Some of the Scream Factory releases are strictly available in the U.S., so, yeah, I don't know. I'll find a way to get it at some point. In the meantime, I didn't want to wait until I managed to track it down because I really wanted to watch these. I actually wanted to do this a while ago, just do a comparison between the two, because I had never seen this version, and it had been a very long time since I'd seen this version. Alright, so the story is, of course, based on the novel by Stephen King, which sadly I have never read. I understand it doesn't follow a strict narrative structure like most of his stories do. It's more kind of one of those, collection of articles and recollections type of structure. I've seen some books like that before. The original Dracula was actually done in that style. So my understanding is the book is done in that sort of style. So it's a little bit different than the sort of straightforward narrative. So a lot of the famous lines of dialogue and whatnot that we know today are actually originated from the movie. So basically, Carrie follows the story of Carrie White, who is kind of an outcast amongst her peers. High school is hell kind of thing, where she doesn't really have any friends, doesn't really have anybody that she can turn to. She has a just insane, like literally insanely religious mother who, this is not the good Christian. This is the just crazed Bible thumping nut job kind of religious type, where and a lot of the things that she quotes from the Bible aren't even in the Bible. It's just kind of her own twisted interpretation of things. So the opening scene, and this is the same for both of them actually. The opening scene is after gym class, practice, what have you. Carrie's in the shower, Well, all the girls are in the shower and they all go off and do their thing, and she's just kind of showering alone, and she's cleaning herself, and then begins to bleed from down there. Basically, she's I guess, a bit of a late bloomer compared to her peers, and it's right at that moment she gets her first period. And her mother has never told her anything about the facts of life or anything. She thinks that anything to do with menstrual cycles or anything is just all sin. It's the devil kind of thing. So she's never told Carrie anything about it. So Carrie has no clue what's going on, and she just flips out. She just freaks out because she thinks she's dying. All she knows is suddenly she's bleeding uncontrollably from between her legs and has no idea what's going on, and she just freaks out. And all the girls there are basically just taunting her, and they're like literally throwing tampons and maxi pads at her, chanting plug it up," and stuff like that. It's really harsh. It's a really harsh scene. And poor Carrie is just like completely, a basket case by the end of it, because she doesn't know what to do. Nobody will help her. Nobody will tell her what's going on. They're all just taunting her. She doesn't know why. But what this does is this sets up this sets the precedent, basically, of this is what her life is like in high school. She's an outcast and constantly the subject of ridicule, to the point of just complete mental abuse from her peers. So this is not a good situation. This is not a happy life that she has. When she gets home, it's no better, because her mother is just completely engulfed by her twisted religious perceptions, and just won't tell her anything about life. Even she herself doesn't really understand how life really works. She's just had her own troubled, twisted life that has led her to where she is now. And she talks about at one point how she should have killed Carrie before she was born, or when she was born, rather than having to endure her growing up into a world of sin and stuff like that. And it's just not a happy home at all. So she has a miserable life at school, a miserable life at home. And so what ends up happening is, in the original, she's basically prom is coming, and there's the sort of one big popular girl at school, and her peers, and they were all kind of the ones most responsible for the incident in the locker room. So they're all out having practice, and the gym teacher comes over to them and stops them all and tells them to tell her what happened, and nobody's talking and such. And they're saying, well, if you don't come clean about this, you're not going to go to prom, and stuff like that. So the one popular girl, played by Nancy Allen, by the way, Nancy Allen, who was so nice as Officer Lewis in the RoboCop movies, is just the bitch queen from hell in this. Like, I wouldn't have expected that Nancy Allen, who's normally seems so sweet and nice, could play just such a horrible, nasty person. But she does a great job. And of course, Sissy Spacek is Carrie, and also does a fantastic job. Very empathetic performance from her. Just a wonderful actress. But so long story short, basically, Nancy Allen's character gets kicked out of prom, so she's not allowed to go to prom. So she she blames Carrie for that. She's like, "Oh, it's all Carrie's fault. I hate Carrie White." Blah blah blah. When really, no, it's not. Carrie was 100% the victim in that situation, victimized by you B word, and so anyway, she begins to plot her revenge, and her boyfriend is played by John Travolta, basically doing the kind of like, what if Bobby Barbarino was a real douchebag? That's kind of the character here. So she's essentially manipulating Bobby into helping her, saying, we want to get back at Carrie White. It's her fault. I can't go to prom, and blah blah blah. And she's just ruining my life, and blah blah blah. So they concoct this plan. It's like, well, let's let's fix the prom so that whoever she goes to prom with will fix the election for the prom king and queen, so that she will be up on stage when the king and queen of prom is announced, and we'll dump a big bucket of pig's blood on her, and that'll get her. That'll really humiliate her, and stuff like that. So a good chunk of the movie is kind of intercut with Carrie and what's going on with her, and Nancy Allen's character and her plan to get back at Carrie and to just ruin prom. In the meantime, one of the other girls who was there. This is the one thing that's interesting, and I'll talk about this a little bit in a little bit, because there's kind of a different take on this in the 2013 version, or slightly. It's basically the same thing but slightly different. One of her friends goes to her boyfriend and says, "I want you to ask Carrie White to the prom instead of taking me," and we're in the 1976 version. We're kind of wondering, it's like, okay, is this part of the revenge plan, like the humiliation plan, or does this girl genuinely feel bad about what happened and just wants to do something nice for Carrie? In the 2013 version, it's made very clear that she feels terrible about what happened and just wants to do something nice, to the point where, I mean, it's really a noble gesture on her part, really, where she is basically sacrificing her own prom to make it up to Carrie, to give her, a night of happiness, something that she's never really had before. And I get the impression in the original as well that was what was going on there too. It wasn't that she was part of the revenge plan. It was just that she genuinely felt bad and wanted to give her a nice night. Now, in the original, her boyfriend is played by William Catt, the greatest American hero himself. Yeah, very young, good-looking guy with just a amazing mane of blonde Goldilocks hair. Yeah, he was a good-looking guy in his younger days. He actually aged very gracefully too, but he's just the nicest nice guy, and when he invites her to the prom, and of course she doesn't want to go at first, but finally she relents and decides, okay, fine, I'll go. It's like, I mean she's very suspicious. Obviously, she thinks it's going to be a big trick, and she's like, why do you want to invite me to prom? And he's like, well, because you liked my poem. And there was a scene earlier in English class where the students were reading poems that they had written, and she just sort of muttered a comment to herself about his poem, said she thought it was beautiful. And the teacher, like, even the teachers make her life miserable. And the teacher comes over and like makes a big thing. It's like, well, what was that? What did you say about his poem? She says, I thought it was beautiful. And he's like, beautiful! That's amazing! And he just like totally puts her on the spot and embarrasses her. That teacher, by the way, was played by veteran character actor Sidney Lassick, who's a character actor that I've always loved. He played one of the really memorable characters one of many memorable characters in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He was one of the patients there. And it's funny, as I've been going through horror movies, I've been seeing him show up in quite a few of them. Yeah, but anyway, it was a treat to see him, even if it was just a small part. I should also mention Carrie's mother in the original is played by Piper Laurie, who was already a veteran actress, had been in quite a lot of stuff. Now, I primarily know Piper Laurie as Catherine Martell from Twin Peaks, which was very much, a later role for her after she'd already had a very, very long and well-established career. But boy, is she ever good as Carrie's mother. I mean, she really nails crazy. So as all of this is going on, Carrie is discovering something about herself, namely that she really is not like other kids. She has some kind of growing power that she doesn't fully understand. She's discovering that she's able to move things with her. And this was actually established right in the very first scene, when they're all throwing the tampons and everything at her, she gets very, very agitated, very stressed, very upset, and one of the lights explodes but it's her. She made the light explode, like just through her agitation. So she begins to notice things happening when she gets agitated and whatnot. So she starts looking into it. She's going to the library and looking up books on, mind powers and magic powers and things like that, and comes to realize that she has the power of telekinesis. She's able to move and manipulate objects with just with the power of her mind. So she starts to work on that. She starts to, rather than just sort of being at the whim of it happening whenever she gets upset, she works on practicing and trying to get it focused and such. So that she can use it for whatever. I mean, she doesn't really know, I don't think, what she's going to use it for, but just she wants to hone this ability. I mean, this is something new and exciting and makes her different and special, and it is really, something she wants to explore more deeply. Now, I should mention one comparison also is the whole Carrie researching it and developing her powers on her own is quite different between the two. Well, it's similar but different. Like in this one, it's much more subtle as far as the effects goes and how she moves objects and such. In the 2013 version, of course, it's almost a 40-year difference in effects, so they can do special effects a lot more of that type a lot more easily now. So in that one, she's more kind of, whereas in the original, she more just kind of uses the power of her mind. In the remake, she also uses her hands to sort of try to focus and manipulate things in the floating books in the air and things, and lifting her bed and things like that. Where she's focusing her mind, but she's using like the visual aid of her hands to kind of manipulate things, and which I thought made perfect sense. I mean, because most people, I think, would need some kind of focal point for that if they had that type of ability. It helps to sort of have a visual to assist with how you're manipulating the object in the air or what have you. So that was interesting. I thought that was a logical update to that as far as seeing her developing her powers. So anyway, in the end, I think we all know how it ends up. Most people are familiar with the story. So the prom happens. It's the best night of her life. Tommy, the boy who took her to the prom, is just the perfect gentleman, and he's really being super nice to her and really giving her a nice time. And they're having a great time. And lo and behold, behind the scenes, the election for King and Queen of Prom gets fixed, and they end up winning. So they go up onto the stage. Meanwhile, Chris, I just remembered, is Nancy Allen's character's name, and her boyfriend, Bobby, played by John Travolta, are under the bleachers, or under the stage, and they've got a rope to the bucket, and she's like pulling on the rope. And meanwhile, her friend, who had Tommy ask Carrie to the prom in the first place, shows up and sees what's going on. Meanwhile, the teacher escorts her out and says, "No, you're not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to be a prom. You don't have a date, blah, 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 whatever. Get out, you're not welcome here." And she's trying to say, "No, there's something going on. There's something wrong." But she's too late. The bucket dumps on Carrie. She's covered head to toe in pig's blood. And then she just snaps. It's like, here it is, the greatest night of her life. She gets pig's blood dumps on her there. The bucket falls down and smashes Tommy in the head. In the original, it's not clear whether or not he survived that or not. Did it just knock him unconscious, or did it kill him? In the remake, it's very clear that the bucket killed him. They make that pretty obvious, that there is no question that it killed him. So that further adds to her stress. And then she sees everybody, looking at her and laughing at her and stuff, and she just snaps. And that's when her powers kick in, mixed with her rage. Like, it's the straw that broke the camel's back. And I mean, she's like, well, I have all these powers now. I'm going to use them to exact my revenge right now. And yeah, it's pretty freaking intense. Now that scene also is quite different between the two. Well, again, the same but different. So in the original, she's more or less just standing there, like, unblinking. I swear, she does, from that point of the movie till the end, she doesn't blink once, and she just has this wide-eyed, intense stare, and she just kind of looks at things and like twitches to, manipulate one thing or the other. Like, she's just using the intensity of her gaze to do it. It's very, unnerving, and basically, she closes and locks all the doors, and things start exploding, and there's fire. It ends up burning down the whole damn school. And then walking home, and meanwhile, Chris and Bobby have escaped. They see her walking down the road. They try to run her over, and it's a great shot in the movie. She just kind of twitches, and the car swerves off the road and goes flying off and tumbles away and then explodes, and then that's it. So she has dealt with all of her enemies, and then that just leaves her mother. So she goes home, and her mother was like, "Oh no, I was gonna, I tried to warn you that they're all gonna laugh at you. They're all gonna laugh at you." Should mention, a friend and I used to quote that to each other endlessly. It's like, they're all gonna laugh at you. We just say that to each other randomly. Just random little anecdote there. And then she basically has her final confrontation with her mother. Now, in the 2013 version, that plays out a little bit differently as well. For example, when she's going to prom, in the original, her mother's just saying, like, don't go, don't go, don't go. They're all going to laugh at you and stuff like that. So basically, in the original, she's just kind of trying to verbally stop her from going, and Carrie's just like, no, I'm going. You're not going to stop me, mother. This is, my time. You're wrong about, this being sinful or whatever. It's just, he's a really nice boy, and I just want to go and have a nice time. It's like, you don't have to worry about anything. I'll be home early and stuff like that. And then her mother's just kind of pacing back and forth and freaking out. And then finally, Tommy shows up, takes her off, and then everything's all wonderful. And then the mother just kind of freaks out while, and like paces back and forth while Carrie's off at the prom. Now, in the 2013 version, it's a little bit different. In the 2013 version, we see more of Carrie actually using her powers against her mother when her mother starts to get up in her face about stuff. So, for example, when she's trying to go to the prom, her mother is trying to stop her, and Carrie like uses her powers, and like she just like lifts her up off the ground and says, "No, you're not going to stop me." And then she goes like this and says, "Don't say another word until I'm gone." And then she basically flings her into the little alcove under the stairs, a little religion room that she always would put Carrie in whenever she needed to punish her or whatever. And then locks her in there, and then uses her mind powers to weld the lock shut. So that's something we didn't see in the original. So basically traps her mother in there and shuts her up, and then goes off to the prom. So when she gets back, it plays out a little bit differently. Like the final confrontation in the original was the mother, was she's been going just progressively more nuts while Carrie's been at the prom. So she comes back and she's like, I should have killed you when you were born, and but I didn't, because I wanted a daughter. Blah blah blah. So they're like hugging, and then her mother pulls out the butcher knife and then stabs Carrie in the back, and then Carrie's like, what the fuck? And then realizes that her mother's going to try to kill her, so there's no choice. So she, there's basically a big chase through the house, finally ends up in the kitchen, and then the mother raises the knife, and then Carrie unleashes like another kitchen knife to pin her arm to the wall, and then pins her other arm to the wall, and then just unleashes like a torrent of every sharp object in the kitchen, and basically kills her, just like pinned up in the doorway. So that plays out a little bit differently in the 2013 version, where it's basically the same thing, where they're just comforting her, blah, 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 and talking about how, her father was a drunk and everything, and that she was the product of sin and blah, blah, blah. And she just sees all sex as sin. It doesn't matter if you're married or whatever, just sex is a sin. And same thing, pulls out the knife, stabs her in the back, chase ensues. But this time, when they get to the kitchen, she does the whole same thing, unleashes everything on her. But then after that, she pulls everything out again, and then lays her down on the floor and is comforting her as she's dying in her arms. And then the girl shows up, who was Tommy's girlfriend, who told him told him to invite her to the prom, shows up and tells her that, are you okay? Come with me, blah blah, blah and stuff. There's a lot more in the 2013 version about this girl really trying to redeem herself and trying to make it up to Carrie for all the horrible things they did. One other big thing, of course, I knew they were going to introduce this in some way, is the scene at the beginning with the tampons and everything. Someone films it on their phone and posts it on YouTube. So just to add the social media element in it to make it a little more contemporary. But I mean, most of the major beats of the story are the same. It's essentially a straightforward remake / redo of the story from the book, with some familiar beats that are obvious callbacks to the 1976 movie, but at the same time updating it and making it a little more contemporary. Honestly, as far as remakes go, I really liked this one. I thought it was actually very well done, because I felt that they were being respectful of the source material and respectful of what people liked about the original movie, but just updating it a bit, And Chloe Grace Moretz, I mean, holy crap, she is such a great actress. I mean, I can see her going really far, and she's just doing one interesting role after another. And when I heard that she was going to be playing Carrie in the new movie, that really piqued my interest. I wanted to see what she was going to do with it, and I actually really enjoyed her performance in this a lot. So overall, I mean, I enjoyed both of these. I mean, I enjoy this for being the product of its time and just being a great 70s, supernatural thriller. And I think this was actually a really good update of it. There's been a few updates of Carrie over the years. I've heard that the others aren't so good. But honestly, I would recommend this one if you haven't checked it out, and if you like the original, because it's, I think, a very respectful remake. So that's pretty much my thoughts in a nutshell. I didn't actually mean to do a blow-by-blow account of the entire plot, but hey, there it is. Oh, actually, one other thing I should mention while I'm on the subject is how she dispatched Chris and Bobby in the original is quite a bit different in the 2013 version. In that one, it's more drawn out. It's more kind of, she's actually confronting them and dealing with them more directly, like kind of locks her in the car and then stuff like that. There's more to it. They stretched it out and made it more of a final battle with her ultimate foe, as it were. Whereas it was a lot more sudden in the original. And I think both work. Honestly, I kind of prefer the original in that respect, because I just felt it made it more shocking that it just happened so fast. And, it was dispatched, and it just kind of cleared the way for her to go home and deal with her mother. As far as the tail end, both of them pretty much end the same, with the nice girl who was trying to make amends going crazy and having a nightmare about Carrie. Well, in the remake, she just kind of goes home, and that's the end of it. But there's an alternate ending. First off, in the original, she has a dream that she's at Carrie's grave, and there's painted on it, "Carrie White burns in hell." And then she's looking at the grave and feeling sad, and then suddenly Carrie's hand bursts out of the grave and grabs her, and then she wakes up. She realizes it's a dream, and she's in her mother's arms, just like freaking out, like she's just going crazy, because the whole thing has just been traumatized. Because basically everybody in the entire high school was killed except for her. In the remake, there is still a pretty high body count during the big thing at the prom, but not everybody gets killed. There's still a few survivors besides her. And in the theatrical version, it just kind of ends with them, her feeling bad and blah blah blah. That's it. But there's an alternate ending, which is more kind of like a different take on the way it ended in the original. So it turns out in this one that she's actually pregnant with Tommy's baby, and Carrie reveals that to her. She's able to pick up on that when they see each other for the last time. So she has a dream that she's giving birth to her baby, but it isn't the baby that comes out. It's actually Carrie's arm comes out of her and tries to grab her, and it's a really horrifying scene, actually. And then she wakes up and she's in her mother's arms and she's going crazy, and it pretty much ends the same from there. Yeah, and that's pretty much it in a nutshell. So, can you tell I really enjoyed both of these? Yeah, I really did. I definitely want to get the special edition of this one. Anyway, this has gone on way, way long, and I need to go to bed. So, quick thank you to my Patreon sponsors, especially Kyle Pellegrini and Get Your Gorgeous On, the always wonderful e-mag from Michelle O'Toole and Simon Hedger. And I will see you guys next time. So, let's quickly pick a chocolate bar here. How about, I don't know, I usually think of one beforehand, but I didn't, yeah, here we go. Kit Kat, because in the end, Carrie broke everything. Yeah, there we go. Alrighty, so that is it from me to you for now, so until next time, thanks for watching, and sayonara.